The shuttle's ramp hissed open, releasing a gust of sterilized air into the docking bay of the X-Wire Dominion training citadel. Sergeant Elias Stone Ward walked out with a lazy stride, boots clipped at his belt, bare feet touching the cold metal floor. The aliens waiting for him froze as if witnessing a ritual they didn't understand. A dozen species gathered around the intake platform, scaled, furred, armored, translucent, each one shaped by worlds far stranger than Earth. Their eyes tracked Elias with a mixture of curiosity and muted amusement. A slender, blue-tinted Suvari leaned toward her companion. "Why is it not wearing its protection? The floor temperature is below its species' comfort limit." "He probably forgot," her companion replied. "Humans display casual negligence." Elias pretended not to hear. He set his pack down, rolled his shoulders, and scanned the chamber ahead. Bright white lights, polished chrome rails, and a towering bulk of chitin armor standing at the far end. "Commander Vorthak Iarson." The insected officer moved with rigid precision, mandibles flaring in a display of authority. His forelimbs clicked against the rail as he addressed the assembled trainees. "Species representatives, welcome to the Camouflage examination. Today's assessment determines your classification for battlefield infiltration. Failure reflects not merely on yourselves, but on your entire genetic lineages." He paused, antennae angling toward Elias. "And today," he added with pointed disdain, "we welcome humanity's first participant. Though your biological file is unimpressive, you are granted the same opportunity for evaluation." Elias offered a cheerful thumbs up. "Thanks for the warm welcome." The room fell silent. A Kesari reptilian whispered. It communicated with a hand gesture. "Does that indicate hostility?" "No," another murmured. "I think humans do that when they're trying to appear harmless." Vorthak slammed a claw into the console. "Enough chatter. Begin preliminary checks." A hovering orb descended and scanned Elias. Its lights flickered uncertainly. "Subject possesses no integument-based camouflaging organs. No adaptive pigmentation. No reflective plates. No stealth membranes. No survival symbiotes. No." Yeah, Elias muttered. "I get the picture. Conclusion: species is unfit for standard infiltration methodology." Vorthak spread his plated arms as if the orb had confirmed his expectations. "Human, do you wish to withdraw? Failure will reflect on your species' diplomatic standing." Elias met his compound stare calmly. "I'm here to take the test. Not to ask for a pity pass." A wave of murmurs rippled across the trainees. A few whispered wagers. Others studied Elias like a science anomaly. Nobody seemed to understand why a creature without biological camouflage would willingly expose itself to a test designed for species who could bend light or dissolve into mist. Vorthak turned away and barked orders. "Prepare the jungle chamber." The massive doors at the far end of the base slid apart, revealing a humid haze drifting from within. Beyond the threshold lay a dense, artificial wilderness, towering vines, shadowy undergrowth, luminous spores rising from the soil. The habitat simulated Rathval's jungle, notorious for swallowing entire squads of predators. Even engineered predators in this test followed real-world rules, silent, fast, and unforgiving. The goal was simple: remain undetected for 1 hour. "Representatives," Vorthak announced, "you will demonstrate your species' natural camouflage. Conceal yourself anywhere within the environment. The system will track your heat signatures, motion fluctuations, and scent markers. If your position is revealed, you fail." The other trainees activated their natural adaptations at once. The Suvari's skin turned transparent. The Kesari's scales mirrored the surroundings. A trio of shimmering Alvari blurred into distorted silhouettes, their bodies bending light. Elias watched them dissolve into the environment. Some shifted colors like liquid glass. Others faded into holographic static. All of them moved with quiet confidence. Vorthak approached him again, antennae twitching with thinly veiled contempt. "Human, you may take the optional technological supplement. We allow your kind a single holographic projector to compensate for your limitations." Elias shook his head. I'm good. You refuse assistance? I came to be evaluated, not carried. Some trainees stopped mid-transformation to gape at him. The orb sputtered again, its skin lines vibrating with confusion. That is an inefficient strategy, it said. Lucky for me, Elias replied. Efficiency isn't the only way to win. Vorthak's mandibles clacked in irritation. Enter the habitat. Begin your attempt. Elias stepped forward, grabbed a small pouch from his pack, and walked barefoot into the artificial jungle. The air changed immediately, warmer, thicker, alive with insect hum and distant movement. Overhead, the canopy filtered the citadel's lights into shifting beams. The moment the doors sealed behind him, the observation gallery lit up. Dozens of alien eyes watched from behind reinforced glass. The test had begun. Elias exhaled slowly, letting the environment settle around him. He crouched near a marshy patch of soil and dipped his fingers into the dark mud. It felt cool and familiar. He smeared it across his face, arms, and chest with practiced strokes, creating uneven patterns to break up his outline. In the gallery, an alien gasped. Is that a thermal agent? No, another replied. It appears to be dirt. Dirt? The word rippled through the chamber with growing disbelief. Elias ignored them. He pressed both palms against the ground, feeling its texture, mapping the vibrations. He noted the direction of air currents, and memorized the density of the nearest foliage. Every vine, every shadow, every hollow mattered. He moved slowly, slipping behind a curtain of ferns. The mud cooled his skin, dimming his heat signature just enough to confuse automated sweeps. He gathered a few broad leaves, pressed them along his shoulders, and slid deeper into the undergrowth. His steps became weightless, each placement deliberate. The alien scanned the feed, jumping from one thermal screen to another. Nothing. The sensors picked up heat from insects, small mammals, and the mist drifting from the soil, but no human. One of the observers raised a trembling limb. Commander, is the subject immobilized? Its signature is absent. Vorthak leaned closer to the display, frustration tightening his posture. Impossible. He cannot disappear. Increase sensor sweep. Elias kept moving, slow as a drifting shadow. He pressed his back against a mossy trunk, lowering his breath until his chest barely moved. The mud masked his scent. The leaves broke his silhouette. The stillness did the rest. He could hear them, the drones humming to life overhead, Vorthak barking commands, aliens muttering in disbelief. They were expecting a creature that relied on biological tricks or technological illusions. They weren't expecting a human who knew how to vanish the old-fashioned way. Elias smiled faintly, slid deeper into the greenery, and let the jungle swallow him whole. The first 10 minutes passed with scanning alarms, confused exclamations, and Vorthak's mounting irritation. The other trainees, already hidden, began peeking nervously at the gallery screens, wondering how a creature without camouflage had slipped off the grid. Elias never looked back. He continued his descent into shadow and silence, calm and focused, already planning the next move. The game had begun, and he was exactly where he wanted to be. The jungle habitat shifted as the first tracking drones slipped through the canopy, their metallic wings brushing leaves with a faint buzz. The air vibrated in response, carrying the sound across the humid chamber. Elias felt it before he heard it, a subtle ripple that signaled the hunt had started. He crouched in the shadow of a twisted root system, breathing through his nose, letting the damp earth cool the back of his neck. Above him, shafts of artificial sunlight broke through the heavy foliage in uneven patterns. Every angle offered concealment if used correctly. Every shadow was a tool. The drones weren't subtle. They rarely were. Designed by the XYR, they favored intimidation over subtlety. Bright red scanning beams, aggressive sweeps, and the distinctive chitter of mechanical mandibles. Elias watched one glide past, its sensor plates flickering as it searched for a heat signature. It passed within an arm's length. It didn't see him. In the observation gallery, confusion grew. A Suvari trainee leaned against the glass. Why do the drones fail to detect the human? Its species emits substantial body heat. A reptilian Kasari hissed softly. It should glow like a beacon. Commander Vorthak bristled at their commentary. The drones are recalibrating. The human's temperature must have been momentarily obscured. Obscured by what? An Avari asked, shimmering faintly. Vorthak's mandibles twitched irritably, but he offered no answer. Elias followed the drone's movement with careful eyes. The mud on his skin had dried into a cracked pattern that blurred the edges of his figure. Earth tones blended with bark, soil, and moss. The leaves draped over his shoulders reformatted his outline entirely, turning him into nothing more than another shape in the undergrowth. He shifted only when necessary, and only when the drone's line of sight angled away from him. Silence. Stillness. Timing. He eased backward, sliding down a shallow incline into a thicker cluster of ferns. His bare feet made almost no sound, toes spreading lightly over the soil, absorbing texture and pressure. Each movement was deliberate, anchored in years of terrestrial recon training. Elias reached a small pool, its surface rippling faintly with condensation. He dipped both hands in, letting the water cool them before brushing droplets across his arms. A cooler limb meant a more confusing thermal reading. Not invisible, just harder to track. The drones weren't the only threat. The jungle itself responded to the disturbance. A deep, guttural vibration rolled through the chamber. Thick foliage rustled as a four-legged predator, engineered for this test, slipped between trees. Its black hide absorbed light, its elongated skull sweeping from side to side. The creature wasn't designed to attack trainees, only to pressure them. But it moved with a predator's instinct, sniffing out anything out of place. Elias watched from a hollow beneath a tree's overgrown roots. The beast paused inches from his hiding spot, nostrils flaring. Its golden eyes narrowed, trying to separate him from the earth behind him. In the gallery, a Suvari whispered, "If the human moves, it's finished." "He cannot outrun that thing," the Kasari replied. Elias didn't move. The predator lowered its head, sniffed the air again, and stepped away, disinterested. Elias had coated himself in the soil around its den moments earlier, masking his scent. It didn't smell human, it smelled like the ground beneath its own paws. As the creature left, Elias exhaled quietly. One danger gone. Plenty left. He waited 3 minutes before crawling deeper into the habitat, tracing a path toward a cluster of large stones half covered in vines. He paused again, studying the terrain. A low humming noise signaled Vorthak's next move. Additional tracking drones deployed, this time in coordinated formation. Not a standard procedure, Elias recognized sabotage immediately. The drones formed a triangular sweep grid designed to box him in. The aliens observed Vorthak's decision with uneasy glances. "Commander, is that within examination protocol?" the Avari instructor asked. "Adaptation requires pressure," Vorthak replied without turning. Elias spotted the formation change from the pattern of flashing lights filtering through branches. He didn't panic. He needed misdirection. He reached up, grabbed a dry branch, and flicked it with a quick snap into the opposite direction. It broke against a vine, making a sharp crack that echoed across the clearing. In the gallery, several aliens jerked in their seats. "There! That must be the human! Thermal spike detected! Target located!" The drones veered toward the noise instantly. Elias moved the other way, sliding beneath the low-hanging vines. His fingers curled gently around the damp soil as he crawled, spreading the movements across forearms, knees, and toes to avoid concentrated sound. The ground absorbed the pressure. He knew the aliens were watching every sensor feed, convinced the noise was him. They didn't understand how often humans use sound as bait. They didn't understand misdirection as a basic instinct. He reached a moss-covered boulder and pressed his chest against it. The cool surface neutralized his heat signature again. He let the moss cling to his torso, grabbed a handful, and rubbed it along his sides for additional texture. A drone drifted overhead, scanning in frantic directions. In the gallery, panic spread. "Why is the movement pattern inconsistent? Why is the scent profile fluctuating? Why doesn't the human show up anywhere? Finally, one Avari trainee murmured. Perhaps the human's camouflage is behavioral. Vortak stiffened. Nonsense. That species lacks adaptive capability. No one answered. Elias kept moving until he reached a fallen log bridging a patch of marsh. He slid beneath it, letting the thick trunk break his silhouette completely. From here, he could see the alien observers through a slit in the foliage. Their bewilderment was almost comical. He allowed himself a small grin. A second predator emerged nearby, metal plates glinting along its sides. It prowled with a slow, methodical gait, a sign that Vortak had increased the tension again. This one wasn't just for pressure, it was for forcing movement. Elias watched its approach and waited for the perfect moment. When the creature paused to sniff the ground, Elias lifted a small pebble and rolled it down a slope to his left. The creature whipped its head toward the sound, scanning the area with a low growl. The drones followed it. Elias used the opening to climb the underside of the fallen tree, gripping roots and fungal growths to elevate himself into a pocket of darkness hidden beneath the log's curvature. Stillness again. A drone floated past, slow, uncertain, its scanners losing coherence as heat and scent readings contradicted each other. In the gallery, tension rose sharply. He's manipulating the predators. No, he's manipulating us. How is a low-tech species circumventing every tracking method? Vortak's claws scraped the rail. Continue the search. No human outmaneuvers XYR systems. Elias listened to the echo of those words, then settled deeper into the shadows, motionless as stone. The jungle embraced him, turning him into another ghost in its crowded silence. And the exam was nowhere near over. The habitat lights dimmed slightly as the system transitioned into its second phase. Shadows lengthened across the artificial jungle floor, turning every tree root into a dark ridge and every vine into a line of potential threat. Elias lifted his head from beneath the fallen log, studying the new lighting shift. Now they're getting serious, he murmured. He slipped out from the hollow and let the forest breathe around him for a moment. The predators had retreated into high ground positions, a sign they were repositioning for coordinated sweeps. Drones rose higher, shifting from low search patterns to aerial triangulation. The citadel was adapting. Good. Now he knew he'd pushed the system far enough to make them uncomfortable. Elias wiped a smear of mud across his abdomen and scanned the canopy. The trees grew denser toward the northern corner of the chamber. The foliage layered thickly enough to distort thermal readings. If he could slip through the narrow passage along the base of the ridge, he'd reach an area the drones rarely accessed. But that route wasn't empty. A set of violet eyes gleamed from behind a cluster of enormous mushrooms. A Suvari trainee, thin, translucent, nearly invisible, watched him with wide-eyed disbelief. She whispered so quietly even the sensors wouldn't catch it. How are you moving like that? Elias pressed a finger to his lips, urging silence. The Suvari hesitated. Her skin shimmered as she shifted deeper into transparency. Your kind is not built for stealth. You should not be able to avoid the drones. Not avoiding, Elias whispered back. Outmaneuvering. She almost dropped her camouflage out of pure confusion. That is not the same thing. It is, he replied. If you understand your opponent. The Suvari blinked slowly, trying to analyze the logic. Your species is strange. So I've heard. He didn't linger. Any trainee interaction risked giving away his position. Elias slipped into the narrow passage beneath the ridge. The ground dipped sharply, turning into a shallow trench filled with tangled roots. Perfect cover. Above him, drones attempted to lock onto movement signatures, but their data streams contradicted each other. Heat clusters overlapped. Scent trails dispersed in patterns too inconsistent to map. Every time they converged on a location, they found nothing. Vortak's agitation spread through the observation gallery like a storm front. Reassess the algorithms. The human should be traceable. It is producing no reliable data. It cannot simply vanish, Commander. Vortak slammed one claw against the console. Humans are predictable. They lack the evolutionary advantages required to defeat X-wire detection. This is a temporary anomaly. The Avari instructor folded her luminous arms. It has been 40 minutes, Commander. Her tone carried a hint of amusement. It didn't help. Elias continued along the trench until it opened into a shallow basin lined with soft moss. The silence here was heavier, as if the habitat itself held its breath. He crouched and pressed his back against a thick growth of fungus, letting its pale fronds wrap around his form. He scanned the area, taking stock. 3 drones hovered at the basin's edge. Their lights flickered erratically. The recalibration was failing. Their programming functioned flawlessly against species whose camouflage relied on predictable biological patterns. But Elias wasn't using biological camouflage. He was using patterns they didn't understand: control of movement, control of sound, control of attention. The drones synchronized into a wedge formation and descended. Elias inhaled. Not fear. Preparation. He needed to create a gap, small, precise. He waited until the lead drone lowered its sensor panels. Then he shifted his weight, just enough to brush the moss beside him. The faint tremor released a puff of spores that drifted upward like a pale cloud. The drones swept in instantly. Their sensors locked onto the spreading mass, mistaking density change for body heat. Elias slipped sideways under the cover of drifting spores, sliding along the curvature of the basin. His palm brushed the soil lightly to stabilize his balance. His feet pressed softly against the moss, compressing it without noise. He moved past the drones entirely. In the gallery, the response was immediate. "What is that reading? Is that the human?" No, those spores are reflecting the sensors. Why would the human rely on flora interference? Humans interact with their surroundings, the Avari instructor said quietly. They adapt without altering physiology. Vorthak turned on her. Adaptation requires evolved biology. Not always. The atmosphere tightened. Back in the basin, Elias paused behind a tree root, listening for the next wave of movement. The drones buzzed overhead, confused again, reorganizing. Their patterns shifted, wider, more aggressive, sweeping toward the central chamber. Good. He'd drawn them away from the only vulnerable area left. Elias climbed the ridge using knotted vines, pulling himself upward with careful, distributed pressure. His muscles worked smoothly, body low, avoiding silhouette exposure. At the top of the ridge, he scanned the next zone. This was the heart of the habitat, a clearing lit by soft violet light from bioluminescent bulbs embedded in the simulated bark. A small stream cut across the ground, twisting like a silver line. The center of the clearing held a formation of rocks shaped like a miniature cavern. Perfect. He slid down the slope and crossed the stream with a single quiet step, letting the cold water ripple around his ankles. Halfway across, he froze. A metallic thrum rose behind him. The advanced drone. Vorthak's personal unit. It dropped from the canopy with predatory grace, landing on the rocks ahead. Sleek, narrow body frame. Dual sensor arrays. Adaptive processors. This one could track micro-vibrations, breath displacement, and chemical changes. The gallery fell into complete silence. Even the Suvari trainee whispered, "He cannot beat that one." The drone pivoted slowly. Its sensors focused. Its heat arrays swept the clearing like a blade. Elias stayed perfectly still. Stillness was no longer enough. The advanced drone would detect the heat across his skin within seconds. He needed a different angle. He stepped forward, deliberately, toward the stream. The drone charged its targeting sequence. Elias plunged both hands into the cold water and splashed it across his chest, neck, and hair. Not random splashing, targeted across the hottest points of his body, lowering thermal output instantly. The drone flickered, recalibrating. Elias pressed himself into the streambed, letting the flowing water wash over his torso. The cold absorbed the remaining excess heat, turning him into a muted blur on the drone's scanners. 1 second. 2 seconds. 3. The drone swept again. Nothing. Elias rolled beneath the rocks, crawling into the narrow cavern and pulling a curtain of vines behind him. Water dripped from his body in cold rivulets. He exhaled once, controlled. In the gallery, pandemonium erupted. How did it lose him? That drone cannot misread thermal signatures. He used the water as a cooling field. That is not camouflage. It is strategy, murmured the Avari instructor. Vorthak trembled with fury. Override the drone! Flush him out! But Elias was already gone, deep within the cavern, where no drone could angle its sensors. He closed his eyes briefly, letting the darkness settle. He had 20 minutes left. Plenty of time. And the XYR still hadn't realized the worst part. He hadn't even started trying. The jungle trembled as the first tremor rolled beneath the soil, shaking leaves loose from the canopy. Captain Jorah froze mid-stride, one hand braced on a tree. That wasn't seismic, she hissed. That was mass. Lots of it. Marcus crouched beside her, already smeared with a fresh layer of mud. It streaked down his arms like war paint. How big is lots? Bigger than a Lurathi tank. Might be an entire brood cluster. Tarn adjusted the bioscanner strapped to his forearm. It warbled in distress, lights flickering. Energy signatures unstable. Their queen must have activated the hive link. They're tracking a mine scent. Probably yours, Marcus. Marcus blinked. Mine scent? I didn't spray anything. It's not chemical. Tarn tapped his head. It's behavioral resonance. Humans project intent so strongly it leaves a trace. They're following your instinct trails. Fantastic, Marcus muttered. I can't even think without becoming a GPS tracker. Jorah glanced between the two. We move now. The vault entrance is close, maybe 200 meters north. Once we activate the shield, the swarm can't breach it. Marcus, you take point. He nodded, sliding forward through the brush with uncanny ease. Despite the tension, Tarn still watched him with a mixture of disbelief and fascination, as though Marcus were a walking hypothesis he couldn't fully solve. The tremors grew louder. Branches snapped in the distance. A low chorus rose, chittering that sounded like metal scraping bone. Jorah whispered, They're close. Marcus signaled for silence. He pressed 2 fingers to the soil, feeling the vibrations ripple against his skin. 3 groups, he murmured. Left, right, center. The center pack is slower, they're testing the terrain. The flanks are trying to cut us off. Tarn stared. You got all that from dirt? It's a skill we pick up, Marcus said. Camping. Hunting. Staying alive where wolves don't ask permission. No human data reports this level of sensory acuity. We don't file paperwork on instincts. Jorah waved them forward. Debate later. Run. They sprinted. The brush whipped at their clothes as the jungle narrowed into a natural corridor formed by roots and fallen trunks. Overhead, thick branches latticed against the light, turning the path into a dim green tunnel. Marcus leaped over a tangle of creepers. Vaults ahead. I can smell the cold metal. Tarn frowned. Smell? Instinct, Marcus reminded him. Before Tarn could argue, the jungle exploded. A Lurathi warrior, 4 meters tall, armored in chitin plates, burst through the foliage to their right. Its mandibles snapped, spraying resin along the ground. Keep moving! Jorah shouted, drawing her phase blade. Marcus didn't hesitate. He grabbed a handful of mud from the ground and smeared it across his chest and neck, then sprinted straight at the creature. What are you? Jorah started. Marcus dove, rolling under the monster's swing with barely a whisper of sound. The mud matched the soil perfectly. The Lurathi's heated gaze passed over him without reacting. Invisible again. Marcus surged upward, slamming his shoulder into the creature's underplate. The impact staggered it long enough for Jorah to slice through its joint with a clean, practiced arc. The warrior collapsed, screeching as its limbs spasmed. Tarn stared. That should not work. It works, Marcus grunted, wiping more dirt on his arms. And I'm going to keep doing it. The chittering chorus grew into a roar. More incoming, Jorah warned. Move! They charged through the final stretch of forest until the trees opened into a clearing dominated by a massive stone archway. Beneath it, a metallic hatch sat half buried in moss. The vault, Tarn breathed. Marcus inspected the ground. Tracks, lots of them. The hive's been circling this spot. Jorah keyed the panel. The hatch groaned, gears grinding as ancient mechanisms awakened. A dim blue glow radiated upward from the depths. Get inside, she ordered. Marcus helped Tarn climb down the ladder before following. Jorah entered last, sealing the hatch above them with a heavy clang. The interior lit automatically. The chamber was cylindrical, lined with conduits and old Alliance tech. Hollow screens shimmered to life, projecting star maps and pulsing grids. The air was cold enough to sting. Tarn wiped condensation from a console. This is pre-fall technology. The barrier generator should be operational if the core still has charge. Jorah stepped to the center platform. Activate it. Tarn's mandibles clicked anxiously. It will take a moment. Marcus paced the perimeter, listening. We don't have a moment. The hatch vibrated. Dust rained from the ceiling. A thunderous impact echoed through the chamber. Jorah drew her sidearm. They're trying to break in. Marcus's eyes sharpened. Let them. Buy me 30 seconds. Explain. Marcus scooped a handful of dust from the floor and mixed it with the remaining mud on his hands, creating a dark paste. I'm going back up. They're expecting 3 of us. They won't expect a ghost. Tarn shook his head. Marcus, the swarm will be concentrated at the entrance. You cannot fight them alone. I'm not fighting, Marcus said. I'm confusing them. Jorah grabbed his arm. This is reckless. This is human. The hatch shuddered again. Resin began seeping through cracks. Jorah released him. 30 seconds. No more. Marcus climbed the ladder with silent precision. As he cracked the hatch open, the noise rushed in, 1,000 claws scraping stone. The swarm filled the clearing, a shifting mass of limbs and eyes. Marcus eased himself into the mud-coated foliage that ringed the vault entrance. He became still, breathing shallow, mind empty. A Lurathi brute slammed into the hatch. It didn't notice the human crouched a meter away. Marcus waited for the perfect beat, then hurled a stone across the clearing. It struck a trunk on the far side. Instantly, the swarm pivoted as one, racing toward the sound's origin in an avalanche of chitin. Marcus darted the opposite direction, circling the hive. Every movement was calculated, quiet, vanishing the moment it finished. This wasn't stealth tech. It wasn't camouflage algorithms. It was a man who'd spent his childhood sneaking past guard dogs and tracking deer in forests that didn't forgive mistakes. A tremor shook the earth. The swarm realized the deception. Screeches rose. Time was up. Marcus sprinted for the hatch as bodies crashed through brush behind him. He dove through the opening just as Jorah slammed it shut. A blinding pulse surged through the chamber as Tarn activated the generator. A hum rippled outward, rising in pitch. Then silence. Tarn exhaled. Barrier online. They cannot breach it now. Marcus collapsed on the floor, chest heaving. Jorah knelt beside him, gripping his shoulder. You did it. He grinned through the mud. Told you. Humans don't vanish. We adapt so hard you forget we're there. Tarn studied him with renewed awe. Your species defies prediction. Marcus smirked. Get used to it. Above them, the barrier thrummed steadily, holding back the roaring swarm. The galaxy had just learned a new rule. Never underestimate a human with mud and a plan.